How can our perceptions change our lives? Hi, this is Coach Laura Ray. Thank you for checking out my video. Just take a quick second to subscribe and share with a friend. I so appreciate it. I wanted to take a minute to talk about perceptions because they truly are such an important part of our reality or unreality, so to speak. There's so much to be said for perception, but I want to touch base on a tiny little part. Our perceptions are truly our own and they're very unique to us, but they don't necessarily get created in the moment. Our perceptions are incredibly different from everyone else's. You can actually see that when you tell a story that has differences from someone that experienced the same exact thing with you. And we can all look at the same thing and see it, feel it, think it differently. To some degree, I think that we all kind of feel as though everyone perceives the same way that we do, right? I mean, how could they not? It is what it is, right? But is it really what it is? So when we think about perceptions, they have to come from someplace. They come from who we are, what we've come to be, and what we've come to expect, what we've come to believe, our values, our morals, our fears, our upbringing, our families. They come from past experience, right? Because all of these things are the past from this moment. In this moment, everything is past. They come from motivation. They come from what we want to believe. They come from so many different places that we bring with us through this life, from birth to the moment we perceive a thing. And that perception comes from all of our senses. It's not that we just simply perceive something from what we hear or some interaction. We literally create our own unique perception from all of the input, from all of our senses, touch, taste, hearing, vision, everything. So as we create these perceptions, we also gauge them as good and we gauge them as bad. It's those perceptions and those behaviors and thoughts that create patterns and the habits that those come from. The interesting thing about perception is maybe we really don't think about it as actually real. It's there kind of in a background as an abstract thought that people talk about, but we don't really engage in perception. And we don't really use perception to our advantage. Perception makes reality not really a reality. It's actually an altered reality, right? It is the real thing as we view it through the lens of our experience that we've brought with us to this moment in time. Our past creates shapes and actually moves our perception. And it's cumulative, right? So as we go through life, it builds. We use that to create perception that creates that behavior, that shapes that habit, that forms that pattern, and we bring it all forward in this moment. It's that quick. We don't even realize that it's happening because we don't actually have to do anything. Almost like these perceptions are actually our habit or our script or our normal. What does this mean? And how do we use it? Well, you actually can create new perceptions in the moment. That's easier said than done. What that means is essentially we have to forget our past if we want to do it easily. Well, that's not something that's likely to happen. I mean, do we even really want to forget our past? Probably not. Those important parts of our being that got us there are in our past. However, we can change our perceptions with work. We can look at the perceptions in the moment while the emotions and the physical sensations are happening right now, or we can view them from the rearview mirror, and we're going to talk about that. In the moment, we can look at it and take it apart and really understand, is it good or is it bad? What am I feeling? Where is this coming from? Or we can look in the rearview mirror and we can say, okay, my perception of that was this. Where is this coming from? Is this framework negatively affecting me? Then we can begin to have a dialogue with ourselves. Is it something that your mother told you? Is there a fear that's motivating that perception? And is that fear real? Using those dialogues, we can change our perception A good example is that in my marriage, after about 21 years, we had a breaking point. It was pretty pivotal in our marriage. I spent time talking about how he had to take responsibility for his part and telling him what his responsibility was. And I also was saying that I take responsibility for mine. The problem was that my perception of my part, my blame, my responsibility was very superficial. But I had an aha moment where I realized midway into this that I was not actually taking responsibility. So I sat down, was honest with myself to figure out why it was so important for me to take responsibility and why I wasn't digging in with it. And I realized that I just needed him to change. And that was my goal, my motivation for my perception. It was to both be right and at the same time create an illusion that I was also admitting that I was wrong. I honestly didn't feel that I needed to change, and that's one of the things that I found out. And that was truly a hard pill to swallow. So this work isn't easy. So I sat down and I dug into my part and I took an inventory of what I was honestly doing. Again, not easy. The interesting thing that I found was that as I was going through it, I was doing the things that I was blaming him for. And that really hurt. That was really tough. And I had to admit it. And once my perception changed from the illusion that I was actually taking responsibility to get him to change, something happened. The interesting thing that happened when I changed my perception from a superficial perception or illusion of what I needed to believe was that it was much deeper. I did the work and my perception shifted. I stopped looking for him to take responsibility. I didn't care anymore about his blame, and I actually changed my perception to the reality of what was going on now, not just simply the reality of what I wanted. I changed it to the moment rather than fixing it and anchoring it to my past and anchoring it to my fears and bringing all of that into my experience. I was able to go forward and change my behavior because my perception changed. And because I was able to change perceptions, that allowed me to change behaviors. I was able to create easily new habits and not just get rid of old patterns, but create new healthy ones from that inventory I took. And that's the really interesting thing about perception and how powerful it is to take charge of it. Once you really delve into it and you take a moment to realize the importance of your perceptions in each moment, is my perception based on what I've brought with me for the last 50 years? Or is it based on the actual reality of what's going on now? And can I change it without worrying about the other person or the other thing? Can I change it without pulling fear into it? Can I bring a realistic perception into my space that's anchored in the moment and the reality, and not just everything that I've brought with me today? For me, that's powerful. If you take the time, you can change your perception, and with that, actually change your life.